You are Locked On Braves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day.
And hello and welcome into the Braves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. Grant McAuley, Jake Mastroianni with you after what was, I think, a much better night of baseball by the final score of it all. But for the Braves, it has been a tough start to this 11-game road trip as they rolled into Pittsburgh after losing a series in Chicago. Got off on the wrong foot, but were able to bounce back in Game 2 of the series for an 8-6 win to even this thing up at a game apiece. For the Braves, though, there was a bit of an injury scare in this one, and that might be putting it lightly, as Ronald Acuña Jr. was forced out of this game, hit by a pitch. We'll update his status, and of course, we'll go through the Braves' comeback and get you set up for Game 3 of the series, which comes your way on Wednesday. Before we get started with any of that, I want to remind you to subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta right here on YouTube. Click the bell to get notified. Anytime we drop a new episode, you'll know all about it. Go ahead, hit the like button, leave us a comment. We appreciate those. And, of course, make sure you subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcast. Jake, this was one of those nights where I think it could be filed under what I like to say about how you can win ugly, but you can't lose pretty. That would go with this one. But more importantly, I think for the Braves, you'll take a win any which way you can get it, because after the All-Star break, and particularly at the start of this road trip, it has just not been the cleanest version of this club that we've seen this year.
It has not been. In fact, they've been losing ugly a lot here lately. So we'll take an ugly win if that's what it takes. But the road trip got off to a bad start here, and it's going to be a long one. So hopefully this is one that kind of rejuvenates them, get them going.
Well, the Braves most certainly needed something to rejuvenate them and to at least get them, as Jake said, moving back in the right direction. And for Atlanta, they got it in the form of a ninth-inning comeback, which certainly helped out. They had to chip away a bit in this game, and you needed to see that. But the offense, I would say, has done its job. We'll talk about that as we dive into the line score and the box score for game number 111 of the season. Braves are 71-40. It just hasn't felt like they're 30-something games over 500 of late. 8 runs, 14 hits, no errors, 11 men left on base. Pirates dropped to 51-62, 6 runs on 9 hits, no errors, and 7 men left aboard. Kirby Yates picked up the win in relief. It was David Bednar who blew the save for the Pirates, and the Braves mounted their rally against him in the 9th inning. He's now 3-2. Raisel Iglesias came on, got out of a little bit of trouble there in the bottom of the 9th to nail down his 21st save. 2 hours, 58 minutes of time of game, Jake. 15,583 on hand to see it. A lot of times I like to start with the good news. Well, I've already told you the final score is 8-6. The Braves won it. But when it came to how this game started, unfortunately, Atlanta's rotation continues to not provide the innings and the answers that the Braves were hoping that they would get upon letting the trade deadline go by. Yonny Chirinos was on the mound for the 3rd time in a Braves uniform. And Jake, this was just not a good outing for him. He was serving up home runs left and right and center to the Pirates. He made it through 5 innings, but I think that was more so having to wear it because the rotation has been in such just a poor state over the past few games, to put it lightly.
I was going to say, maybe the only positive you can put on the start for Chirinos is that he at least gave you 5 innings, which this bullpen needed in this one. But other than that, I mean, this just was not his day. Coming off an outing last time where he was really good, got through 5 innings rather easily before running into some trouble into the 6th inning that kind of damaged his line a little bit. But for this one, just too many pitches out over the middle of the plate. They got absolutely crushed. 7 balls in this game he gave up, had an average exit velocity of 100 miles per hour or harder. He averaged 92 miles per hour average exit velocity against just 7 whiffs on 43 swings. Not great either. I mean, it was not a good start for him. Again, I don't know what the future holds for him with this Braves team. You know, they're looking for answers in that rotation right now, and we're hoping to get a good start after, the guys at the top of your rotation didn't deliver, but unfortunately just was not the case for Yonny here. He got hit really hard in this game.
Yeah, 2 things I'll say just coming out of that, and then we'll kind of, button up the starting pitching discussion on this particular game and our thoughts on Yonny Chirinos. But, you've got to get better out of Bryce Elder, out of Spencer Strider, and out of Charlie Morton. That was just kind of a non-negotiable for the Braves moving forward. For Yonny Chirinos, this is as much as anything just trying to hold fort until you can get Kyle Wright back in your rotation, hopefully about a month from now. We'll see what the timeline is on that. But getting Max Fried back was supposed to be something that kind of serve to allow the Braves to just get a little bit of consistency in this rotation, at the very least some continuity that's been sorely needed all year long. But for Chirinos, I think that the numbers and the StatCast metrics kind of bared out who he is. He's not going to serve up 4 home runs every game, but that was certainly part of his line on this night. 7 hits, 6 earned runs, couple of walks, only 3 strikeouts. You mentioned not much swing and miss for him on this night. Braves grabbed a lead with a Ronald Acuña Jr. leadoff home run in the first inning. That's the way you like to start a game. Well, then the Pirates got 3 runs on one swing of the bat in the bottom half of the first inning. Atlanta answered in the third. The Pirates took the lead back in the fourth, added to it in the fifth, and that was the 6 runs against Chirinos. And then the Braves were able to get a couple of runs in the sixth to proceed their ninth inning comeback when they scored 3 times. But it just felt like, and it was, a back-and-forth battle between these two teams. No two ways about that in this game. It just never felt like one club was comfortably in control, maybe the way that, well, I don't know if the Pirates are comfortable against a club like the Braves, but when you score 6 runs in an inning, that's going to do it. This was more, I would say, death by 1,000 paper cuts, but the 4 home runs kind of tell you that, for Chirinos, he wasn't really fooling anybody, and he was making mistakes in the middle of the zone, and when you do that, you're going to run into, against any major league lineup, the kind of results that he saw tonight against the Pirates.
You are, but credit to this offense. And they've really done this even over these last, 3 or 4 games now when the pitching staff has gone out and given up a big number. They've come right back and at least cut that deficit and given them a chance. I mean, in all these games, they've had a chance late, with a big hit here or there to get back in these games, either tie it or take the lead. Finally, they did that in this one. And again, you say, get the 3-run homer in the bottom of the first, they come back and tie it. Pirates score a couple more. Braves chip back into that with 2 runs in the 6th, and they give themselves a chance late. And you do that often enough with this offense, they're eventually going to come through. That's just how great they are. You wish that this offense didn't have to score 8 runs a night to win a game, but that's just kind of what it's been right now with the rotation. But we know they're certainly capable of it. It's a dangerous lineup, 14 hits in this game, power up and down. Everybody but Riley, every starter but Riley had a hit in this game. It's just the way this offense has been going.
Yeah, and it's where you've had to lean on this part of the club. I mean, when the Braves were making their run through the month of June, it didn't seem like one part of the team had to carry one or the other part. It just seemed like, more nights than not, things were going right offensively. They were getting enough pitching. Guys were stepping up and doing what they needed to do. It just hasn't felt that way, obviously, since the All-Star break for this Braves team, which have been playing around 500 ball, but they won 5 out of 6 on the homestand. So you started to think, okay, well, maybe they're going to carry a little momentum out on the road. And then the Cubs stamped that out. And then kind of to go back on the starting thing, because it's going to be a subject, I think, until it's not, which might sound pretty obvious, but I don't know that it's going to stop anytime soon. But you expect Charlie Morton, you expect Spencer Strider, and you expect Bryce Elder to pitch better than they have the last time out, most certainly. And for Morton and for Elder, maybe beyond that, you expect them to get right a little bit more. You knew Max Fried was coming back. You were, optimistic about Kyle Wright coming back in. Yonny Chirinos, though, being in this rotation and not going out and getting more help is certainly something that the Braves, in hindsight, might be looking back on and thinking, well, maybe we could have found. And I'm not saying a big scale deal. And I'll say this, you're not going to be able to replace all those guys that lost the last 3 games coming into this one. Those guys were staying in the rotation. So bringing in a new guy wasn't going to fix all of that. But this is one of those nights where you do kind of wonder about the depth, the quality of the depth, and, of course, what the direction is going to be for the starting rotation moving forward, whether it be Michael Soroka, who we could see again this weekend, A.J. Smith-Shawver, Jared Schuster, some of the names that we have seen that are in the Braves minor league system that might be called upon in waiting for Kyle Wright to get back in there.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I said on the podcast today. Look, these are your guys. I mean, for better or worse, you got to hope that Morton and Elder and Strider to some degree get it together, because nobody else is coming in. And I agree with you. I don't really know who you would have got at the deadline that was really going to push any of those guys out. You weren't getting a Scherzer or a Verlander. So you're going to have to count on these guys to really just put it together, figure it out. And I believe they can, and I certainly think that they're capable of. And then just hope that Max Fried, he comes back and looks as good as he did last Friday, because he was pretty much perfect almost on Friday.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about Max Fried in just a few minutes, but let's run through the Braves offense, which on this night had a couple of milestones before we got to the Acuna injury scare, which fortunately is just an injury scare, and it is believed that he will be back in the lineup after getting hit by a pitch in the 6th inning. But it was a leadoff home run for Ronald that came to start this game. It was number 26 of the season for him, 31st leadoff home run of his career, as he continues to do that at a very high rate at the tender age of 25, so he could continue to climb on that leaderboard. And that got the Braves going, and that's just been one of the hallmarks of this team, is what can Ronald Acuña Jr. do at the top to get this club going, and he did his part on this night. Unfortunately, had to leave in the 6th inning, Jake. Hit by a pitch, 97 miles an hour, even with a little body armor, is probably not going to feel great. And apparently, according to Mark Bowman of MLB.com, the pitch got Acuna kind of in the crease of the elbow guard, right there toward the point of the elbow. But they do believe, though, he's going to be able to, suit up and play for Atlanta as soon as game 3 of this series. But when you think about the possibilities of things that could go wrong for this team, an injury to Ronald Acuña Jr. is at the top of the list.
It certainly is. We've been saying it all along. I mean, the historic season that he's on, and all I just keep hoping is please let him stay healthy the rest of the season. I want to see what he can do for a full healthy season at full strength like this. So hope it's nothing major, like you said. I think part of it hit that elbow guard, but again, I'm sure part of it got that elbow. So maybe it's just a little bit of a stinger there. Probably feeling some numbness. Hopefully, precautionary. Braves are 71-40. You can take those precautions right now, and hopefully he gets back in there sooner rather than later.
Yeah, another guy we've been talking about quite a bit with the Braves offense, in addition to Ronald Acuña Jr., who, again, I do think dodged a bullet on this night, and so did the Braves for that matter. But Matt Olson, 100th RBI in this one, came on a bases-loaded walk, 1 for 3, also scored a run, was part of the ninth-inning rally, though he wasn't able to come around and score. He was able to find his way on base, and that, I think, started to disrupt things for David Bednar after getting the first out very quickly. It was Olson's walk that at least lit the fuse in that inning as the Braves scored 3 times to take the lead and, of course, take that win. Fastest Braves player to 100 runs batted in. He tied the franchise record for that in 111 games. How about Ronald Acuña Jr., that leadoff home run? That made him the fastest Braves player to 100 runs in a season in Braves history. He was 2 games ahead of the pace of Dale Murphy in 1983. So actually 4 games, 3 games. I'm good at math, but not always on the fly. But 111 games is a record, I can tell you that. I think Murphy did it in 114, so 3 would be the answer. Final answer, lock it in there. But both of these guys have been doing the thing when it comes to the run production for this club. Acuna scoring them, Olson knocking them in, but it was Travis d'Arnaud with 3 doubles, couple of RBI in this game. And then in the ninth, it was 2-out magic. Kevin Pillar coming off the bench and forced into duty actually in this game. He comes through with the game-tying single. Then Orlando Arcia, who'd already homered in this game, he comes through with a 2-run double, Jake, and that's what the Braves needed was the offense, as you pointed out earlier, to find an answer when the pitching staff is really struggling to get the outs it needs, particularly on the starter side.
Love the fight from the offense in this game. And honestly, the stretch, 3-game stretch that they've been on here, it's not on the offense. I mean, they've been doing their job, but you get to see their willingness. They didn't want this losing streak to continue. They want to win and get back to playing good baseball like they're capable of. So really love to see that fight there, the 9th inning against David Bednar, one of the best closers in all of baseball. I know he worked several days in a row, but still made some good pitches. Braves made some good swings there. Good for Kevin Pillar. Came in there, jumped on a first pitch fastball, 98 in, and he's able to get his hands in that and drive it into left field. A guy that hasn't gotten a lot of playing time, and when he has here lately, results haven't necessarily been there for him. So thought that was huge. Orlando Arcia, we're in August now. He's still batting over 300. I don't think many people would have expected that coming into the season. I mean, 3-hit night for him. And then I love the fact you mentioned Acuna and Olson both get to that 100 number in the same game. Thought that was pretty cool and special for them. They're obviously are 2 MVP candidates. They're the big cogs in this Braves offense, the machine that they have going right now. So love to see them reach those milestones in the same game.
Yeah, and kind of fun to see the Braves. I mean, those guys were involved in the run scoring, as we already laid out, but it wasn't just the big guns that had to win this one for Atlanta. It did take some hits from some guys like Orlando Arcia, who've been providing them all year long, and a guy like Kevin Pillar, who's just looking for an opportunity to come in and make a difference and get some at-bats for this team, and he makes the most of it on Tuesday to help the Braves with this comeback victory. So Atlanta, with this win, is able to snap its 3-game slide, able to kind of even things up here on the road trip, or at least get closer to it, as they've split the first 2 of the 4 games with this Pittsburgh series, and they'll be looking to continue things on Wednesday. Updating the standings for you, there's not a lot of movement there. The Braves snapped their skid. Meanwhile, the Phillies split a doubleheader with the Washington Nationals, so not a lot of movement. And really, the Braves, despite having struggled over the past, couple of 3 weeks now coming out of the All-Star break, every time you look at that little column on the standings page that says last 10 games, it seems like, well, the Braves are 5-5. Oh, and the Phillies are 5-5, or they're both 6-4. Really, the only team that's really faded back to the pack has been the Marlins, and that hasn't really been a factor in the standings here too much lately. We'll talk a little bit about Wednesday's game 3 of the 4-game set in just a moment, but I want to remind you, as always, about our great sponsors. And this episode is brought to you by eBay Motors, who remind you a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit, and it's the same with your vehicle. So for parts that fit, head to eBay Motors and look for the green check and stay in the game with eBay Guaranteed Fit. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit's only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only, and of course, exclusions apply. Braves and Pirates meet on Wednesday. It's start number 2 of Max Fried's second half, and maybe second act, if we want to call it that, on this season. He's 3-1 after handcuffing the Cubs across 6 scoreless innings last time out. He'll be facing Quinn Priester, a 22-year-old righty who's up for the Pirates, part of their wave of the future. They're hoping this kid's going to be a part of that. He'll have a tough lineup to face. And, of course, for Max Fried, Jake, I think we're just looking for more of the same because the first time out after a 90-day layoff looked pretty good to me.
I mentioned it earlier. I mean, he looked fantastic. I thought he could have gone complete game in that one, the way that he was throwing. So Braves would definitely take that with the starts they've had here lately. Would love to see him go deep into this one, continue to do what he did last Friday. The Braves are looking for consistent starts out of the guys at the top of the rotation. Like we talked about earlier, I don't want to rehash it, but we know Strider, Morton, Elder, they're all capable of going out there and giving you good starts. It's really just about that consistency, going out there and doing it every time out as much as they can. Hopefully Fried can be that, kind of settle things down in that rotation this next time through.
Yeah, and that's kind of his job, I think, as much as anything, is if it's the ace of your staff, he also kind of serves that secondary role as a stopper for you, or the guy that continues that momentum that you've been able to gain on a night like this where they pull off a comeback victory. The Braves have been known to do that. Hasn't been as plentiful in the second half. There have been a lot of close but not quite games, some almost, as Brian Snitker said. I think after the series opener against Pittsburgh, we're one hit away some of these nights, and that has been the case. But the Braves, they got the hits they needed to overcome some shaky pitching early on and grab that 8-6 win over the Pirates on Tuesday night. That'll wrap things up here on the Braves Postcast. As always, we appreciate you joining us here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Click the button to get alerted. The bell right there. You'll get notifications every time we drop a new episode. Leave us a like and a comment, all those good things. And make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcast. Once again, a Braves victory, 8-6 to snap their 3-game slide. They'll be back at it on Wednesday up in Pittsburgh, and we'll be back at it this week with you as well. For Jake Mastroianni, I'm Grant McAuley. We will catch you next time on the Braves Postcast. And until then, so long, everyone.